My name, as always, is Kemak Onyenuchea, and I'm your host, and I thank you profusely for being a part of the show today. I have an interesting lineup for you. I have another highly intelligent, dedicated, and committed social sector practitioner in the studio with me today, and we will be telling stories about her foray and activities that she has been gainfully engaged in, geared towards improving the living outcomes and the living experience of Africans in Africa and across the world. My name, as I said before, is Kemak Onyenuchea, and I welcome you to this edition of the Third Sector on Africa Business Radio. Joining me on the program today is my very dear friend and social innovative entrepreneur, Adetola Salau. Tola, as she's fondly called, is a global educator, author, and transformation agent. She's currently the Senior Special Assistant on STEM Education at the Lagos State Ministry of Education. She's also an engineer and the author of more than 10 books, one of which is The Roadmap to Transforming Mindsets of African Children, Re-Engineering Minds for Innovation. In 2005, she founded Charisma for You Educational Foundation, a social innovation enterprise with a focus on breaking the poverty cycle in Nigeria and Africa at large by equipping African children with highly competitive STEM skills, essential for the fourth industrial revolution. Her purpose is to transform learning in Africa, especially STEM education, for the economic prosperity and future readiness for over 2 million children in Africa by the year 2030. She is working on engaging children, teachers, and parents to boost 21st century skills that prepare African children for the future of work. She was selected to be a part of the 2018 spring cohort of the MIT Innovation and Entrepreneurship Bootcamp at Brisbane, Australia. Tola, you are welcome to the Third Sector.
Thank you for having me here.
It's such a pleasure to know that you're with us in the studio today. And of course, we're going to learn a lot from you, your journey, and where you are, where you're heading, and your, invaluable work with children, particularly in the area of STEM education.
Thank you.
Right. Now, I always like to start, my show by going on a journey of the past with my guests. Can you tell us a bit about who Adetola Salau is and where she's coming from?
It's been quite a journey, and I'm not one of those people that like to reflect on the past. I actually prefer to fixate more on the future. I know that can be, it's good. It also has its own drawbacks. But anyway, if we're going to talk about the past, I will like to talk about a pivotal moment that led me to where I am right now.
Right.
I think that's good, right?
That is great.
Okay, so that pivotal moment will be in secondary school with horrible, because of one of them in particular I'm even envisioning right now, a horrible science teacher.
Wow.
And that teacher made it so horrible learning science that I even wondered to myself how I was going to become an engineer with that horrible science teacher. Because you see, engineering is nothing more than applied science. So if you don't have your science background, if it's not solid, if it's not really strong, if you're not really grounded, the chances of you being an engineer, it gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. But yet, with this horrible experience with my science teacher, somehow, and that's what I'm going to also talk about as part of my journey, I am here today. I am a chemical engineer. So I always like to emphasize process. And the process was this. I'm glad that as a child, I identified that, okay, this is not going to work for where I want to be. This teacher is really horrible. I'm also glad you see, when I always talk about our work in education, people always notice that I don't just speak about teachers and students alone. I always put parents in the equation, and I like to call it a holy trinity. Teachers, the students, the teachers, and the parents. And I say that because my own experience was, if I did not have a mother who is really strong in science, there was a really, really high probability that I would have said, you know what, I can't do this. I can't be a scientist, I can't be an engineer. But my mom, fortunately, is a scientist, and she's very passionate about it. So that really was a balance for me, being able to overcome that really horrible science teacher.
Right.
But at the same time, that made me realize that a lot of the children that get turned off from mathematics, I also had horrible math teachers too. A lot of children who get turned off from science, or what we now call STEM careers, is because people derail them. And those people, unfortunately, a lot of times were the teachers. And that's why it's very important to realize that teachers are the game changers. And one of the things we're very passionate about, I say we, for the work that I'm doing, my team and the people who I've been working with, my partners, is teacher education. Teachers are a huge part of ensuring that children are able to translate that love and keep that love so that they can now turn around and utilize that love. So here I was with this horrible science teacher, and I've already made up my mind when I was 13 that I was going to be an engineer. Unfortunately, like I said, my mom instructed me by herself at home in math, chemistry, and physics. And then she also made sure that the environment I had at home was a nurturing one, where people were encouraging me and teaching me. And she used to sacrifice her salary to make sure that she got really, really, really good lesson teachers at home. Oh yes, she interviewed those teachers herself.
Wow.
To make sure that they were on top of their game for me. And then by the time we relocated to the States, the university I went to had a really low student to teacher ratio, so that the teacher was able to interact with us and talk to us. And that was another game changer too. Here I was with teachers who were more interested in experiential learning, who are more interested in fact, they were so excited and fascinated by my desire and my passion that I was going to be an engineer. I was going to come back to Nigeria and solve problems. So they all encouraged me. They all kept saying, wow, this wonderful young lady that is so excited and so driven about this. So in all their own various ways, I'm remembering all these various teachers right now, professors. I'm seeing their faces in my mind. All these various professors all encouraged and built me. And I say thank you to them now.
Oh.
Yes. So that's part of my journey of where I went, or where I was, to what I'm doing. So for the past 5 years, it's been 5 years, I have been involved in transforming learning, transforming how we teach our children science and mathematics education, all of it in general anyway, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. I have held, over 3 STEM boot camps during the holiday for our children. I have written books, as he said earlier. Let's see, what else have we done? We've had workshops. We've participated in so many conferences. I've lost track now, both here and internationally. But you see, the center of all of this is I don't want children to suffer what I did. Yes, I don't want children. I don't want children to suffer what I did, which is be bored and have these horrible teachers that make them say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done.
Right. Now, you have, of course, a very interesting trajectory, and I'm blessed to be, a part of your journey and your experience. But there's something that Adetola Salau is known for, and that is future-ready education.
Yes.
That I would almost say that's like the holy grail of your social work.
Yes.
Future-ready education.
Yes.
You are big. You are an apostle of future-ready education for the African child.
Yes.
Can you tell us exactly what that concept or the coinage future-ready education actually means?
Okay. It was my eureka moment in 2017. I have been saying it, but I had been saying it in various ways. And then in 2017, when I was doing research, I sat down and I realized that what is the center of all the work that I was trying to do? Like when I'm trying to explain to parents why STEM education is important, the work I do with children that I know, because I have so many children. Now that I think about it, I have so many children.
Biological?
Biological. No. Okay, I have one biological, but I have so many non-biological children.
Right.
And yes, all over the world, I have lots of non-biological children. So what was the essence of what I was doing? And when I sat down in 2017, I realized it was getting the children ready for their future. Because you see, these children that we're seeing, they're not going to last as children for too long. I mean, just like that, in the twinkle of an eye, I was a 13-year-old saying, oh, I want to be an engineer. And boom, I actually became an engineer.
Right.
So just like that, those children can decide what they want to do now. And boom, they're going to be either doing
in a
those
few
things.
short years.
Yes, in a few short years, they could be doing those things, or they could be turned off from those things. So what is the process in making sure that they're able to achieve what it is that they say they want to? That's one. Then the environment also constantly changes. I remember that when I said when I was 13, I wanted to be an engineer, there was no semblance of, oh, how does tech play into this? However, this is why I always go back to, it's important to have people who are visionaries and also people who are futuristic. My mom is a visionary.
Wow, yes, I can attest to that.
Yeah, don't go and tell her
Professor Salau is a huge
Don't go and tell her I
visionary.
said that, okay? But she is. And she kept emphasizing the role that tech was going to play. And she made sure that when I was, I always tell the story at conferences of when I finished my junior WAEC, and she made sure that I went to typewriting school because she said, everything you're going to do around computers will be based on that typewriter, the keyboard.
Right.
And she was right. I'm so fast. In fact, I don't even have to look at the keyboard when I'm doing my work now.
Nice.
Because she made sure that I was really, really strong with
That
being able
is
to type.
huge, Tola.
It was huge.
Because at the end of the day, when you think about the future and the tech revolution, no one ever thinks about the role that the keyboard plays. And at the end of the day, that's the only way to impute data.
Yes. So
Wow.
she made sure of that. Then let's fast forward to when I was in senior secondary. She also took her salary again and enrolled me in what we used to call computer appreciation then. And I was trying to explain this to my son because my son could not really understand about this. I explained to him that I finished, and that's June it used to be June when you finished WAEC.
Right.
And she went without asking me, which I'm glad she did. She just went and paid the people and said, you know what, you're going to keep her as long as whatever you want. And she's yours. Whatever you're teaching her, whatever you have to do, she's there. She's with you. And the distance between the place and my house, she didn't care. Unfortunately, at that age, I was very adventurous. So I didn't care about the distance. And because I'm even now, I'm so eager for knowledge. I'm so eager to learn and gain information. I went beyond the parameters of the curriculum very fast. Like 2 weeks, I was done. And I was just grabbing and so excited to the point that they even took me to the advanced programs in their house.
Wow.
And I used to sit there and help them and learn. And I gained so much from being there. In fact, I also gained a mentor. One of the ladies there was a petroleum engineer. And remember, I said I wanted to be an engineer.
Right.
So here I was. I saw a woman who was an engineer, a successful one. So I attached myself to her and I learned and I listened to her and I modeled myself after her. So this comes back to what I'm saying about future readiness. I had a mother who saw that. And when I told them I wanted to be an engineer, they said, oh, okay, that's what you want to do, fine. And they said, okay, you go back, do research. What do you need to do towards that? Where do you want to go to school? I want to go to school in the States. Okay, what do you need to have towards that in the States? Go and prepare. And they equip me with the tools, go to the library, come back, discuss that with us. And then you work towards your courses towards that. Unfortunately, a lot of children don't have parents like that. But we need to have a system that helps the children to navigate them around, okay, I want to do this. How do I translate to being that when I'm older? That's what I call future readiness. It's not even just a career per se. It's being able to take care of yourself when you're older. And what are the things you need to put in place now so that you are able to get into that when you're older? And let me come back to tech. So, like I said, I didn't know, but fortunately I had someone who knew and made sure that was infused in my life. That was important because when we relocated, over 20 years ago.
Right.
When we relocated over 20 years ago to the States, that was the beginning of the internet era.
Age, yes.
So everything was online. Now, remember that keyboard?
Right,
That she
the
made sure I did?
lessons.
The lessons. Everything. By then, all teachers write reports. So I was always fast at typing. Then, because I became very comfortable on the computers, I was easily able to navigate my way around the internet. And I mean, it was fantastic. All that foundation, all that foundation, the learning, the computer appreciation, learning Word, learning Excel, which, like I said, my son doesn't understand that we had to take special classes to be able to move around on Word.
It's a part of their daily living
yes,
now.
whereas then, we had no computers at home then. I mean, my dad got one, but that wasn't like everyone's dad had a computer at home. So...
my mom got one as well, but like you said, it
wasn't like everybody had
right.
that. Yes. So I'm saying this to say now Instagram, Facebook, all that is a commonplace now. But guess what? They're going to come around having radical changes in the technology that our children are going to use in the next 10, we am even going too far to 10, 5, 10, 15 years. If we don't start preparing them with the things that are already taking place and changing now so that they can already start learning and having the right skills so that they can adapt quickly to those things that are going to be changing by the time they get to that. I mean, okay, look, the keyboard I mentioned, and then being able to use Word and Excel, and then how many years later getting to the US and being able to quickly write reports, being able to use spreadsheets for my simulations for my science courses. What if my mother had not
started you on that path?
Yes, on that path, and to be future ready. So that's what we're trying to do with our children with STEM. We're
Right.
saying there are certain skills they need to have. There are certain ways they need to think. If they don't think and start being prepared now, by the time these changes happen, by the time these iterations happen, they're not going to be able to compete, which is another part of being future ready, being able to compete.
Globally.
Yes, globally. Okay, now, I went to the US. I wasn't only competing with Nigeria. I mean, I had some Nigerian friends. There were some Nigerian children, but there were people from all over the world. Taiwan, Australia, Malaysia, there in the US itself, Europeans, Germans, Italians, from all over the world. They were in our classes. And in fact, you don't even have to travel anymore to compete with children from these other places. People are relocating to Nigeria because there are opportunities here too.
Right.
Yes, there are.
Right.
And our children are going to compete with the children of these people, or they're going to compete directly with these young people who come here for these opportunities. Do they have the right skills to be able to compete? That's my gospel of future readiness.
Awesome. Yes.
Yes.
Honorable Tola, I beg your pardon. All right. So now I know your parents are both professors. As a matter of fact, your dad was the VC, the Vice-Chancellor at the University of Port Harcourt, from where he went on to become an ambassador with the United Nations. Now, would you say that the background of your parents as educators was some kind of indication that you would toe the same line?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, I believe strongly in that adage that says a fruit.
The apple doesn't fall
far from the tree. I believe in that.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, my siblings are not educators directly. I think I've always had that thing where the knack where I enjoy sharing knowledge, and I enjoy when I see that you understand it and then now you're able to use it. I can't explain the joy that it gives to me. Like, wow, okay, they get it. And then I also want to make life easier for other people by saying, look, this is what you need and this is how it's going to help you. I've always had that, all the way from primary school to secondary school. In fact, in college, my chemistry, biochemistry, chemistry, yes. My teacher used to hand the chalk to me and say, you go ahead and explain. Because I know that your classmates will get it better when you explain. Because my thing is, just tell me to explain. Put me in front of the board. I can break it down.
Wow.
I told my son, my issue, I don't like taking tests, but if you want me to break it down to you one-on-one or 1 to 10, 1 to 20, bam, I'm your girl.
Great.
I will break down the concept. In fact, by the time I finish explaining, you're like, oh my God, why did I never see it that way? So, yeah.
Okay. And of course, you have lectured in universities in New York, and you had about 12 years experience in the New York public school system. All right. Can you tell us about your journey? I know you had like, quote unquote, a come to Jesus moment that led you into the New York City public school system. Can you tell us the backstory?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm a very proud public school teacher. So I guess I am full circle now that I'm with the Ministry of Education. My whole experience began, of course, indirectly again, my mom again. Right. Here I was. I finished right before September 11, and I was looking for work. And while I was looking for work, they're like, okay, you have fantastic credentials. And the New York City system will be looking for someone like you. In fact, not just them, even the suburbs in New York, they'll be looking for people like someone like you. You will have a background in science, chemistry. My first degree is in chemistry. You also are a chemical engineer. They will be eager to have you. And I was like, And I said, okay, let me go. And then she took me down to the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed is the equivalent of the Ministry of Education here. And I went there, and just like she said, I walked in and I walked upstairs. I've forgotten what department it was. I hadn't even finished explain. Oh, my name is, and my background is. I think maybe 3 sentences down, or maybe 4. They snatched me.
Wow!
And they gave me a quick signing bonus. And even then, I wasn't still like totally convinced. Like, oh, do I really want to do this? So my turnaround moment was actually September 11 herself. And when that incident occurred, I was actually on my way to the Board of Ed too. So I saw everything live.
That's the crashing of the World Trade Center.
Yes. I was supposed to go to the Board of Ed, and we are one train stop after the Wall Street. So unfortunately, it's fortunate. God has other plans for my life, apparently. I woke up late that day. So I missed getting on the train. But I still went on the train. But the train that I got on, by then, the first tower had fallen down. So they sent all of us back. And even with that, I was still determined that I still wanted to get into the city. So by the time I really I didn't get into the city, but I went to Long Island. And when I saw, mayhem, people walking on the bridges, my heart broke. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to our children? How are we going to come back as a city? And I was I can't even explain that resolve. Like, I want to work for the city. I want to give back. I want to contribute. So for 1 year, that first year when I was teaching, that sense of purpose, that sense of service was there. And I did work with our children. It wasn't easy, but I'm so glad that I worked with our children that year because they needed healing. And we adults also needed healing. And from there, I continued as a public school teacher because I actually said, wow, I love this. In fact, let me also give a disclosure. I've always known, even when I was in undergrad and grad school, that I was always going to come back to education.
Wow. I
already told all my professors that I'm going to be a professor one day. My name is going to be Professor Tola. And they said, oh, yes, we know you're going to be a professor. In fact, when I was leaving graduate school with my master's in chemical engineering, all my friends were so mad because they expected me to stay and continue to work on my PhD. I remember till I was packing my bags, a lot of my friends were so upset. Like, how dare you leave? And I'm like, it's time to leave. It's time to get into the real world and explore and see what we can do. And to this day, I have 3 of them that are so upset. In fact, I was just chatting with one of them before I came on air from Syracuse. He's a professor right now in Canada. And he was like, I don't know why,
Oh, well, if you hadn't left, I guess the children in Africa may not benefit from the great work that you're doing on the platform of Charisma for You Educational Foundation.
Who knows?
All right. So now, speaking as someone who has had ample experience working with children in the United States of America and children in Nigeria, what would you say is the difference between both groups of children?
I was hoping with all my heart you weren't going to ask that question. I get asked that question a lot, but you've asked it with a different tangent. So, okay, I'll answer because of that. Number one, I want to first of all talk about their similarities, please.
Great.
Because I prefer for us to focus on the ways that unite us.
Great.
Number one, they're all children. And they have so much love in their hearts. They have so much hope. Let's see, they have love, they have hope. And no matter how naughty they are, deep down inside, they want our approval. That's the approval of us parents, authority,
and adults,
adults. So then their differences, okay. The differences will be, I don't know. I'm hoping that it's something that we're going to be able to change. But I see more of, wow. Okay, maybe it's also the population that I also dealt with. You see, the population of children that I dealt with, I worked with what we'll call, quote-unquote, the urban areas. And not just urban areas. I worked with the, really, 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 really challenging, quote unquote, populations. I used to teach in the South Bronx, okay, people? I taught in the Boogie Down Bronx. Okay? So let me bring it home for you. Let me tell you how wonderful those my neighborhoods were. When you're going into school, you have to go through metal detectors, guys.
Wow.
Yes, that's serious. Even us teachers. And they'll have to hold, like, I used to carry small knives to cut my apples. The security will have to hold my knife while I was going through.
Wow.
Yes, and then they'll come bring it upstairs to me. That's how serious it was where I used to teach. But I still love my children. And unfortunately, due to this, the children have been told over and over and over, you're no good. You can't make it. You're not good in these areas. In fact, they've been marginalized that this is where you're supposed to be good at. You're no good in this area. So forget about it. So I will never forget my, yes. I will never forget my come to Jesus moments with them. Wow, I just had that flashback. 2002. One of them said, "Oh, black people are no good at math." I said, "What?"
Wow.
I said, "I'm standing right here in front of you.
And I'm your lecturer.
And I'm not only that, I am a living proof." I had to even bring my degrees. I brought both of them, my undergrad chemistry.
Was that a black child?
It was a black child. So you can imagine how heartbroken I was.
So that was a mental conditioning.
It was a mental conditioning. Yes. So I brought my certificates and showed them. And I explained to them their rich history. In fact, just before I came on air, I was listening about how, unfortunately, we've been sold this thing that we're not really good. Whereas the real truth is that a lot of our history is very rich of us as innovators, of us as creators, of us as people of substance. We need to go back and share this message all across the world, not just Africa, all across the world, to our children, both here in Africa and in diaspora. Because all our children need to... in fact, that was why I wrote my book, Reengineering Minds. But anyway, so some of those children in my neighborhoods there already had that mindset. And I see that here in Nigeria, fortunately, since a lot of our children watch our news and are exposed and see our people, they don't have that barrier. However, the barrier I do see our own children having is that of despair now, which is, oh, things are so hard. Oh, how do I even come out of this? Oh, is it really possible for me to be an Elon Musk or a Bill Gates? Oh, it's not possible. Things are just too hard. Oh, I need money. So they are also putting... The
despondency in the system.
Yes. So they've also put themselves in another box. My children in the US had one box put on them. Our children here have another box put on them. So the thing now is, it comes back to mindset. And that was why I wrote that book, that it all comes down to your mind. And the older I get, the more I see that, my God, I was really on the money. It really comes down to your mind. Because if you look at the people who really achieved a lot, I'm thinking of George Washington Carver in the States. That was somebody in the midst of, coming out of slavery and the mindset that people had around that time. Oh, you guys are no good. You're all supposed to still be slaves. And yet this man had so many patents, created so many things. And look at that university that he created there in the South. So it all comes down to you. What have you decided that you want to do for yourself? I see, and I'm hopeful that a lot of our parents, other adults, will see possibilities for our children here. I see so much greatness in these children. I see possibilities. I see our children creating, wow.
Value.
Yes, amazing things around us. In fact, they're going to blow our minds away. That's what I see. Let's give them that environment to flourish.
All right. Now, before we go on a musical break, let's talk about your return to Nigeria and your establishing of the Charisma for You Educational Foundation. Well, I've always wondered at the name Charisma for You. Can you tell us the story or the story behind the name of your nonprofit?
Of course. Coming back to Nigeria was a decision I made. When I was teaching, I used to always wonder, why is it that nobody ever taught me like this? Even when those professors that I said were very wonderful and gave me experiential learning, I used to wonder, why is it that nobody did this? So I've always had it in the back of my head that I wanted to come back and do that here. I can't even explain how many times I wake up and plan that. I used to collect textbooks from my principals in all the various states that I worked in. North Carolina, South Carolina, even New York. I would collect used textbooks because we had a rule every 3-5 years, we change textbooks. So they will have this set of textbooks. Guys, when I'm saying sets, you guys are probably thinking like maybe 10. People, I'm talking about 30, 50. 70. I think one year I even collected 100 textbooks. I would collect 100 textbooks from these principals, and I would set them aside and tell myself that I'm going to bring them back home to give them to schools that needed books. Because a lot of our books here are very old and they are in horrible condition for the children. So I've always known I was going to come back home. And when I came back, I knew I was going to contribute something in this sector. I didn't know how or when, but I just knew. And I always had that plan in my head. Initially, it was a school, but anyway, that's another story. So I came back and I started as an engineer because I felt I needed to amass, some small savings, capital, and also have experience in the field. And eventually, the call of coming back as an educator was too strong. So in 2015, I resigned and I started Charisma for You. Now, the name, I knew that the work was immense, but I'm so glad I had no idea how immense the work was. Because if I probably knew how immense the work was then, who knows? You know how, if you know how long the journey is going to be, you probably will run away and be like,
right.
Man, I can't do this.
Sometimes it's best to just jump in with both feet and then find out how deep the water is. Or sometimes it's better, to just take your time and know what you're getting into.
So that was me. So when I was thinking about what it was going to take for me to do this, I realized that, man, I need grace. So charisma, that's with the H, in Greek is grace.
Right.
I removed the H for myself. I wanted to be original, but I knew that I was going to need grace.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I needed grace. And whichever of us were working, whether it was the teachers, the parents, the children, they all needed grace. So I said, okay, charisma for you, grace for you.
Right.
Because you really need grace in this journey.
And of course, I've been a part of your journey and I see, the copious amounts of grace that is required,
yes.
Especially in working with children. Okay, we're going to go on a very quick musical break. And when we return, we're going to talk about your actual projects and programs under the banner of Charisma for You, and of course your recent appointment as the Senior Special Assistant in STEM Education in Lagos State. It's the Third Sector with Kemak Onyenuchea on Africa Business Radio. We're going on a quick break and we will be right back.
You're listening to Africa Business Radio, where you get up-to-date insights on the Africa business landscape. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com. Your favorite shows are available on podcasts. Download them on our website and mobile app. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.
Africa.
Ojumatimo mi, milehio. Ojumatimo, morireo. Ojumatimo mi, milehio. Ojumatimo, morireo. Ojumatimo, morireo. Ojumatimo, Ojumatimo mi, nileyo. Ojumatimo, morireo. Ojumatimo, Ojumatimo mi, nileyo. Ojumatimo, morireo. Oh yeah, adaba, adaba, to fall okay.
listening to Africa Business Radio, where you get up-to-date insights on the Africa business landscape. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com. Your favorite shows are available on podcasts. Download them on our website and mobile app. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.
You are welcome back to the third sector on Africa Business Radio, and I am Kemak Onyenuchea, your host. And of course, I still have with me in the studio Honorable Adetola Salau, the founder of Charisma for You Educational Foundation, as well as the Senior Special Assistant for STEM Education, in Lagos State, Nigeria. Tola, you're welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
All right. Now, very quickly, because we're almost out of time, I want to find out, in your work with children, what are some of the major challenges that you have faced, in your quest to entrench a sublime educational process for the children, particularly in the STEM subjects? And I want to bring this question from the angle of the role that parents play. You talked about the holy trinity of education, which is the child, the school and teachers, and the home, and the parents. So can you tell us a bit about your experience with Nigerian children, driving the revolution in STEM education from the angle of the influence that their parents bring to the table?
Their parents have a huge influence. And unfortunately, a lot of parents are not exerting that influence. And I'm really sad about that. They are tired because working right now is very stressful, particularly in places like Lagos. Right. We love you, Lagos. So we try to encourage them to understand that your ultimate investment will always be your child. And when I mean investment, I'm not talking money, I'm talking about your legacy. Because you see, you only have so much time, and then when you're not here, the children will pass on who you are, and then the children will pass it on to their children, and it goes on and on and on and on. So we try to tell them that you need to have a holistic approach when you're dealing with our children. You shouldn't be so driven where, it's academics. There's more to life to the child than just academics. You should be engaging them in what's happening around the world, asking them questions, trying to find out who they are, their essence inside them. And then you also should be challenging their minds. Because you see, like we alluded to earlier, we're in a global marketplace now.
Right.
They're not competing against just their classmates, their friends. They're competing with children all across the world. One of my favorite learnings and sayings at conferences last year is we're now in a gig economy. And a gig economy means that you're going to be competing with people in Denmark, in Norway, in Berlin, that's in Germany, in Canada, in the US, in London.
Right.
You're going on platforms like Upwork or Fiverr, and you're saying you want this job. You're not just competing with somebody in Port Harcourt or here with you in Lagos. You're competing with people all across for that same opportunity to be able to deliver that job and make money. So you need to prepare your children in being able to express themselves, communication, because that's how they're going to be able to sell themselves. You also need to be able to work on the 4 C's, the most important skills that we need for this 21st century. Communication, which I just mentioned, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration. They need to learn to work with other children. So it's very, very important. And that's where parents come in handy. All these areas that I just mentioned, the foundation happens in the home.
Right.
Who are the people that come in touch with the children first? It's you, the parents. Yes, from the age, from ages 5, 6, they have more contact with their teachers. It's true. But at least that first 5 years, for the most part, they have more contact with you. So you are that foundation. By the age of 5, trust me, majority of what a child is,
it's already formed.
It's already formed. So if you're not done that foundation, man, you're going to have a battle in your hands, man.
Right.
So it's you, the parents. So yeah.
All right, Tola. Now, looking at the vision, I know your goal is to impact 2 million African children by the year 2030 with your revolution in STEM education. And your goal is that children will take on, careers in STEM and become, like you call them, problem solvers. Can you talk to us a little bit about your vision that children should be able to relate their learnings with their everyday life experience in solving problems that they encounter?
Yes. We want a situation where, let me give you an example of another eureka moment for me. When we relocated back here, I never forget, I think my son was 7 years old. And I think from a child's mind, he probably kept wondering, 1 minute there's light all around me. And then all of a sudden there's darkness and everyone is screaming, NEPA! And then you have to go turn on the gen. So the child probably wondered, why does this constantly happen all the time? And then he'll go out during the day and the sun is so bright. And then on YouTube and on shows that he will watch, on the Discovery and who else? Discovery, National Geographic. He will see them talk about solar power being generated and used in China or in the US. So one day on our way back from school, he said, can you explain to me why we have so much sunlight and we're not using it to generate power?
Right.
And that day was when it hits me that, you see that these children, they think. And they're wondering, how do we solve these problems we have? And why are we not empowering them so that they can start thinking about solving these problems themselves for us? And that was another welcome moment for me, that we're not talking to these children enough and making them realize that you guys actually are the ones who are going to solve this problem, because they are our problems. That's us adults and your problem, because you are going to inherit them.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Eventually.
You're going to inherit them. So I'm a strong believer in relevant education. Education that you gain, you garner, and then you now use around you. And actually inherited that. I know I'm going to mention my mom again.
Right.
Guys, don't go back and tell this lady.
But of course she has to know.
My mom will always use whatever she was teaching in chemistry or mathematics. She would always make a connection to something in the real world. And I was just sharing with someone earlier today about how her dissertation, her PhD, was all around meteorology,
right,
which meant that she was using what she had learned in climatology and meteorology to solve problems in the agricultural. Yes, and I used to go with her to IITA, the one here at Ibadan. So it was fantastic as a child watching her do that. So that's what we want to see our parents do. We want to talk about solving problems. We want to make our children make connections. Africans, you are in charge. You are the ones who are going to stop looking for saviors outside. You are going to solve your own problems.
We need to take charge and responsibility.
In fact, I just read something on, I think it was on Instagram just minutes ago, for Africans by Africans. That should be our slogan.
Right. All right, Tola. Very quickly before you go, should someone decide to reach out to you, partner with you and Charisma for You, how do we get in touch with you? Your phone numbers, your social media handles, and other stuff.
Phone number 0708-104-9793. That's my WhatsApp number. And social media at Charisma for You. That's Instagram.
Can you spell that?
Oh yes, remember no H. So it's CARISMA, the number 4, because yes, we are STEM people.
Right.
And the letter U.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Honorable Adetola. It's been exciting and insightful having you on the show today. And to you, my listeners, I want to thank you for being a part of the show. But don't forget, the conversations still continue across our social media platforms at Africa Business Radio on Instagram, and on Twitter, you can send us a tweet at Africa Biz Radio. You can also follow me on my personal Instagram at kemak.o. That's at KEMAK.o. Thank you so much once again for being a part of the show today. Until I come your way on the next edition of The Third Sector, be good and keep making impact in your community. Goodbye and God bless you.
You're listening to Africa Business Radio, where you get up-to-date insights on the Africa business landscape. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com. Your favorite shows are available on podcasts. Download them on our website and mobile app. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.